High-definition cameras with removable lenses open up a series of new possibilities for the digital filmmaker. Unfortunately, this new feature came with a price: back-focus misalignment. Back-focus refers to where the lens focuses the image inside the camera body, where the image block will convert it into digital data. Now, because the lens is connected to the camera body via a connector, there are moving parts, and those moving parts can cause enough play for the lens to move just slightly. It's nothing that you can see by naked eye, but it is enough to create blurry images. Now, when you focus with the lens, changing the focus from the subject to subject in the scene, that is moving the focus that you see, but you still need to have a precise point where the lens focuses the image inside the camera body. When using a lens like this, in this case we are using a 16x Fujinon zoom, goes from 5.5 to 88 millimeters. The normal procedure for back focus, actually for focus adjustment, is to zoom in on the subject, focus, and then reset the focal length to the desired measure. It's at that point that you'll be able to spot, if you are lucky, you'll be able to spot the problem. Sometimes the misalignment is just so small that you will not be able to see it inside the small viewfinder because limited resolution and small size, unless you're using a big monitor, many times you will not be able to catch the problem until it's too late in the editing room. So it's important that you integrate a back focus adjustment routine in your camera setup. If you're using a camera like the JVC HD 100, 200 or the Sony XDCam F350 up to the 900, back focus adjustment has to become part of your routine. Otherwise, you will end up with ruined shots. So the obvious questions at this point are, how often do we need to adjust the back focus and how we do it? The how often part is easy. Every time you replace the lens, every time you transport the camera, or every time there is a high temperature change, like you're going from indoor to outdoor. You're in an office with the AC running, then you're going outdoor with sparkling sun. The how do I do it is a little more convoluted and in fact is the subject of today's episode. Now I'm going to show you 3 different methods and they're all working, they're all fine. Some are better than others, and what I mean with better is simple, faster and more accurate. So let me show you what tools are available. First one here is a Siemens Star. This is something you find usually at the end of your lens manual. Works just fine. There are just a couple of issues with this. First of all, this is a mass production print. It's really cheaply printed on cheap paper. It doesn't have the highest contrast ratio possible, and contrast is the name of the game with this adjustment. I can tell you just by looking at this that actually the Fujinon letters are a shade or two darker than the chart itself. So it could be improved. Second thing is, look at the size of this chart. If you take it straight out of the manual like it is, when you're zooming out at the widest setting, this thing is such a little speck inside your tiny LCD. It will be nearly impossible to judge accurately, judge focus with this chart. So it can work in a pinch. If you don't have anything else available, by all means use this. But there are better tools for the job. Speaking of which, the second one is a chart by DSC. DSC Labs creates professional tools for camera calibration. If you only have money for one chart, this is one of the best tools you can find on the market. This is one of the best values. In the front, we have a color chart and a grayscale chart. In the back, very appropriately, there is a back focus chart. Now, the color chart has several uses. I use this to calibrate my camera This is what I use for my true color settings. Served me well for over a year. The other use is that if you include a few frames of this chart at the beginning of every single clip that you shoot, you are able to match the color of every clip, or you can match the color of different cameras shooting the same scene. With a few frames of the color chips, your color expert, you'll be able to do a trivial color match instead of spending hours trying to match the shots. The grayscale chart in the middle is guaranteed to be neutral, and this means you can do white balance adjustment, and again you can use the same area of the chart to match the white balance of several shots. The BackFocus chart uses a similar pattern to the Siemens star. It's just in a different formation, and it's printed on a very high contrast material. This, together with the modified pattern, will generate a bow tie optical illusion right here in the center. I hope you can see it. That will help you judge the focus. Basically, when the lens is sharply in focus, that pattern will be visible. Now, this is probably the best system you can get for the money. And it is a chart that served me well for a long time. I shot pretty much the entire series of Second Unit, the first 2 seasons with this, and it works just fine. If there is any issue that I can raise about this is the size again. This is easier, but it's still small, so we can improve from this point on. Let me show you what we have now. Finally, here is the fiddleheads chart. Well, hold on a second, I have a monitor here. I'm trying to frame it right. It's so big, and well, here it is. Anyway, good. This is called fiddleheads, and this is the latest and greatest by DSC, again, printed on very high contrast material. This is a radical departure from the standard star pattern. This is using a double spiral, and the reason for this is to basically maximize the chart surface. This is also a much bigger chart. Take a look at the difference. Let me see if I can frame it right. Okay, we are talking about more than twice the size of the original chart. So this is helping you. Let me see. Even if we move at this point, this is still very good. You can still frame it right even with a zoom lens and judge focus. The double spiral is actually generating an interesting visual effect on the screen. When you are in sharp focus, you will actually see, and I'll demonstrate later on, so bear with me for a second, but you will see 2 pie slices right here, this area, here, and here. Even though it looks perfectly smooth, you will actually see jagged lines that will delineate those slices. And again, that is a way for you to understand that your lens is right there in sharp focus. So I think I talk way too much at this point, so let me give you a demonstration of how it works, okay? All right, so now we are looking at the display of my camera, and let me tell you a couple of things about this situation. First of all, remember that the resolution of this display is not exactly the same of the camera. Actually, it's much lower than what the camera can see. So we are looking at a low resolution image of the scene, and we are looking at this through another camera, and we are looking at this through a web browser. That means you're probably watching the 360p version of the clip instead of the 720p. So it's a low resolution, low resolution, low resolution. The effect is much, much better, of course, when you see this in real life, but it will be clear enough. Let's take a look at the setup for the BackFocus adjustment. Of course, you frame the chart correctly, you light it evenly, remove the hot spots, and so on. But the next thing you need to do is to open the iris of your lens all the way, lens wide open. And If there is too much light hitting the camera, then just turn the shutter adjustment to the higher speed. In this case, I think I set up to 1/500th of a second instead of the standard 1/48, and in that way you compensate for the light. The other thing is to turn the controls of the display in order to create the highest contrast. So the contrast for your LCD should be at the highest level, and the brightness should be, well, in this case, not really at the lowest setting. That's what the DSC chart suggests to do, but for this camera, it was lower, but not at the lowest settings. Next, we are going to zoom in order to adjust the focus at that point, at the longest focal length. And as you can see, it's pretty sharp. Look at the contrast when we defocus and we focus back. It's a pretty interesting effect. It's almost like the spiral is rotating. And you can see there are some lines right there in the center. That is an optical illusion created by the high contrast and the spiral. See, right there? So that is a visual clue that our chart is perfectly in focus. So the next step now is to zoom out. But let me show you again the effect of defocusing and refocusing, because it's really kind of a characteristic, see, of this chart. And when you do a couple of times, you really get the idea of how it works. So let's see how this chart works in this situation at 5.5 millimeters. Compared to the other two, they are so much smaller. The idea is that this chart will allow us to do an adjustment in much shorter time and be more precise. Let's release the thumb screw at the base of the lens where there is the back focus adjustment ring, and then you start moving the ring back and forth a little bit until you see the chart going in focus. We are out of focus, and bam, take a look. Look at that. That is exactly what I was talking about. See that cross, those lines, those pie slices as I call them, and you can see all the way to the widest range of the spiral. That is exactly what I was talking about. This is a clue, a visual effect that tells you now you are perfectly in sharp focus. And look at that. Oh, look at that. Now that's amazing. That is really, really a beauty. So now you can just go ahead and tighten the thumb screw for the back focus adjustment, and you know that all the way through the range of the lens, your back focus is perfectly adjusted. Your images will be perfectly in focus. You'll have beautiful shots. Will improve your career. So anyway, this is how the DSC fiddleheads chart works. I think it's a big improvement and something that helps us do our job faster and more accurately. Well, I hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching. See you next time.